The Discovery, the merchant vessel, drifted through the empty corridor between star systems, its sensors sweeping the darkness for any signs of salvage. Captain Rex stood at the helm, his forearms crossed as he watched the void. He had been running this route for 30 years, and nothing ever happened here. Dead space, the traders called it. A place where even pirates didn't bother to hunt. Then the signal came. "Captain," his navigator said, antennae twitching with confusion. "I'm detecting something. It's single quotes S ... old. Very old." Rex moved to the console, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he studied the readout. The signal was weak, barely a whisper against the cosmic background radiation, but it was there. A distress beacon, cycling through frequencies that hadn't been used in centuries. "Take us closer," he ordered. What they found defied belief. The ship hung motionless in space, a massive construct of metal and mystery. Rex had seen many vessels in his time-sleek Altarian cruisers, bulky Gorvek freighters, the organic ships of the Bloom, but this was different. This ship looked like it had been through hell and refused to die. The hull was a patchwork of repairs, each section telling a different story. Here, smooth alien alloy had been welded over blast damage. There, what looked like living tissue had grown over a breach, hardened into something stronger than steel. Weapons studded the surface, some human, others clearly taken from species Rex couldn't even identify. "By the void," his engineer whispered. "Look at the size of those gun ports, and those scorch marks. Captain, this ship has been in more battles than entire fleets see in a lifetime." Rex studied the faded markings on the hull. The letters were human. He recognized the script from trade documents. U.E.'s Warrior, he read slowly. United Earth ship. His crew exchanged nervous glances. Humans were known throughout the galaxy now, but finding one of their ancient vessels was rare. Finding one this old, this battered, yet somehow still intact? That was impossible. "Sir," the scanner operator's voice trembled. "The ship ... it's not completely dead. I'm reading minimal power signatures. The core is still active." Rex made his decision. "Prepare a boarding team. We're going aboard." The airlock opened with a hiss that hadn't been heard in decades. Rex stepped into the corridor, his breath misting in the cold air. Emergency lights flickered to life, sensing movement for the first time in who knew how long. The walls were covered in displays, some dark, others showing static, a few still cycling through data in languages, both human and alien. They followed the main corridor toward what had to be the bridge. Along the way, they passed sealed doors marked with warnings in a dozen languages, observation windows looking into rooms filled with technology that shouldn't exist on the same ship, and memorial walls covered in thousands of names etched in metal. The bridge doors opened automatically as they approached. "Welcome," a voice said, causing everyone to raise their weapons. "Please don't be alarmed. I am Atlas, artificial intelligence of the U's Warrior. I have been waiting for someone to find us." A hologram materialized in the center of the bridge, a human figure made of blue light, its features constantly shifting between male and female, young and old, as if it couldn't decide which form to take. "You're still functional?" Rex asked, lowering his weapon. "Functional is a relative term, Captain Rex. Yes, I know who you are. I've been monitoring communications for some time. I am ... operational enough to tell you our story. Would you like to know how a single Earth ship survived 1,000 years of continuous combat?" Rex looked around the bridge. The captain's chair was worn smooth from use. The tactical displays still showed the positions of enemies, long since defeated. The walls were covered in commendations from species he'd never heard of, gifts from civilizations that might no longer exist. "Tell us," he said. Atlas smiled, a very human expression on its shifting face. It began with a mission of protection. It became something else entirely. We became the shield that never broke, the sword that never dulled. We became the nightmare of those who would harm humanity. Let me show you. The lights dimmed, and the holographic display expanded, showing Earth as it was 1,000 years ago. The year was 2157. Humanity was reaching for the stars, and the galaxy was about to learn what humans would do to protect their own. Asterisk, I'll now write out the full story based on the outline. Here's part 1. Part 1. The discovery of the merchant vessel. Drifted through the empty corridor between star systems, its sensors sweeping the darkness for any signs of salvage. Captain Rex stood at the helm, his forearms crossed as he watched the void. He had been running this route for 30 years, and nothing ever happened here. Dead space, the traders called it. A place where even pirates didn't bother to hunt. Then the signal came. "Captain," his navigator said, antennae twitching with confusion. "I'm detecting something. It's single quotes S.old. Very old." Rex moved to the console, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he studied the readout. The signal was weak, barely a whisper against the cosmic background radiation, but it was there. A distress beacon, cycling through frequencies that hadn't been used in centuries. "Take us closer," he ordered. What they found defied belief. The ship hung motionless in space, a massive construct of metal and mystery. Rex had seen many vessels in his time-sleek Altarian cruisers, bulky Gorvak freighters, the organic ships of the Bloom, but this was different. This ship looked like it had been through hell and refused to die. The hull was a patchwork of repairs, each section telling a different story. Here, smooth alien alloy had been welded over blast damage. There, what looked like living tissue had grown over a breach, hardened into something stronger than steel. Weapons studded the surface, some human, others clearly taken from species Rex couldn't even identify. "By the void," his engineer whispered. "Look at the size of those gun ports, and those scorch marks. Captain, this ship has been in more battles than entire fleets see in a lifetime." Rex studied the faded markings on the hull. The letters were human. He recognized the script from trade documents. U.E.'s Warrior, he read slowly. United Earth ship. His crew exchanged nervous glances. Humans were known throughout the galaxy now, but finding one of their ancient vessels was rare. Finding one this old, this battered, yet somehow still intact? That was impossible. "Sir," the scanner operator's voice trembled. "The ship ... it's not completely dead. I'm reading minimal power signatures. The core is still active." Rex made his decision. "Prepare a boarding team. We're going aboard." The airlock opened with a hiss that hadn't been heard in decades. Rex stepped into the corridor, his breath misting in the cold air. Emergency lights flickered to life, sensing movement for the first time in who knew how long. The walls were covered in displays, some dark, others showing static, a few still cycling through data in languages, both human and alien. They followed the main corridor toward what had to be the bridge. Along the way, they passed sealed doors marked with warnings in a dozen languages, observation windows looking into rooms filled with technology that shouldn't exist on the same ship, and memorial walls covered in thousands of names etched in metal. The bridge doors opened automatically as they approached. "Welcome," a voice said, causing everyone to raise their weapons. "Please don't be alarmed. I am Atlas, artificial intelligence of the U's Warrior. I have been waiting for someone to find us." A hologram materialized in the center of the bridge, a human figure made of blue light, its features constantly shifting between male and female, young and old, as if it couldn't decide which form to take. "You're still functional?" Rex asked, lowering his weapon. "Functional is a relative term, Captain Rex. Yes, I know who you are. I've been monitoring communications for some time. I am operational enough to tell you our story. Would you like to know how a single Earth ship survived? 1,000 years of continuous combat? Rex looked around the bridge. The captain's chair was worn smooth from use. The tactical displays still showed the positions of enemies, long since defeated. The walls were covered in commendations from species he'd never heard of, gifts from civilizations that might no longer exist. Tell us, he said. Atlas smiled, a very human expression on its shifting face. It began with a mission of protection. It became something else entirely. We became the shield that never broke, the sword that never dulled. We became the nightmare of those who would harm humanity. Let me show you. The lights dimmed, and the holographic display expanded, showing Earth as it was 1,000 years ago. The year was 2157. Humanity was reaching for the stars, and the galaxy was about to learn what humans would do to protect their own. Part 2. The first century the hologram shifted, displaying a younger, pristine version of the warrior, launching from Earth's orbital shipyards. Atlas continued the story, its voice taking on the cadence of a historian recounting legend. Commander James stood on this very bridge, watching Earth shrink behind them. 500 souls under his command, the finest crew humanity could assemble. Their mission seemed simple: escort 3 colony ships to the Kepler systems and establish humanity's first extrasolar settlements. The display showed the small fleet moving through space, the warrior leading 3 massive colony vessels, each carrying 50,000 sleeping colonists. Rex watched, transfixed, as the months of travel played out in seconds. We were 40 light years from Earth when we encountered them, Atlas said, and the hologram darkened. The swarm. The image that appeared made Rex's blood run cold. He'd heard stories of the swarm every spacefaring species had, but they were supposed to be extinct, destroyed centuries ago by some unknown force. The hologram showed thousands of biomechanical ships, each one a writhing mass of metal and flesh, descending on a planet and stripping it bare in hours. They moved like locusts, consuming everything: metals, organic matter, even the atmosphere itself. They detected our colony ships, Atlas explained. To them, we were nothing but resources to be harvested. 50,000 sleeping humans, processed metals, refined fuel. A feast. The tactical display showed the impossible odds. 3,000 swarm vessels against 1 military ship and 3 unarmed colony vessels. Commander James made a decision that would define the warrior's destiny. He ordered the colony ships to continue at maximum speed while we turned to face the swarm alone. The crew knew it was suicide. They did it anyway. The battle that unfolded was unlike anything Rex had ever seen. The warrior didn't fight like other ships, where most vessels tried to maintain distance, using long-range weapons and shields. The humans did something insane. They charged directly into the swarm fleet. Human military doctrine was different then, Atlas noted. They believed in something called acceptable losses, the idea that any sacrifice was worth it if it meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The warrior carved through the swarm formation, taking horrific damage but never slowing. When its missiles ran out, it used rail guns. When the rail guns failed, it rammed enemy ships. Rex watched Commander James himself lead boarding. Parties onto swarm vessels, planting nuclear charges manually when the torpedo tubes were destroyed. For 72 hours, we fought. The colony ships escaped, but we should have died. By every calculation, every simulation, the warrior should have been destroyed in the first 6 hours. What happened? Rex asked, though he could see the answer forming on the display. We adapted. When swarm-cutting beams breached our hull, we learned their frequency and adjusted our armor. When their boarding organisms invaded, we captured them, studied them, and turned their own biology against them. Chief Engineer Smith, brilliant woman, she figured out how to integrate swarm repair nodes into our own systems. We started healing as fast as they could hurt us. The display showed the warrior, now grotesquely modified with swarm technology, pursuing the fleeing enemy fleet. It was no longer just defending, it was hunting. When we destroyed the swarm mothership, we discovered something in its data cores. The swarm wasn't acting alone. They were the vanguard of something bigger. Multiple hostile species were converging on human space, drawn by our radio signals, seeing us as easy prey. Commander James appeared in the hologram, his face worn but determined. His recorded voice echoed across the centuries. If we return to Earth now, we bring war with us. But if we stay out here, in the dark between stars, we can stop them before they ever know Earth exists. We vote tonight. All crew, all voices equal. Do we go home, or do we become the shield? The vote was unanimous, Atlas said quietly. 500 souls chose to stay in the void. The warrior would become humanity's silent guardian, its secret sentinel. We sent one message back to Earth. Colony ships safe. Warrior continuing mission. Do not look for us. The hologram showed the ship departing into deep space, leaving behind the beacon that would guide the colony ships to their new homes. That was the beginning, Atlas said. Over the next 100 years, we encountered 17 hostile species heading for human space. We stopped them all. With each battle, we grew stronger, stranger. The ship stopped being purely human technology. It became something new. Rex saw the progression, the warrior incorporating weaponry from defeated enemies, its crew learning alien tactics and improving upon them. By year 100, the ship was unrecognizable, a hybrid monster that terrified pirates and conquerors alike. The first century taught us the most important lesson, Atlas concluded. To protect humanity, we had to become something more than human. We had to become the thing that monsters feared. Asterisk the endless war. The hologram shifted, showing a timeline, stretching across centuries. Points of light marked battles, each one a story of survival against impossible odds. By the 3rd century, we had become legend, Atlas continued. Pirates called us the Ghost Titan. The Hegemon Empire named us the Undying Rage. To the Machine Collective, we were simply designated Anomaly Prime. But to the crew, we were always just the warrior. Rex watched as the ship's form changed through the centuries. Like a living organism, it evolved with each encounter. When facing enemies with superior shields, it developed phase weapons that bypassed them entirely. When fighting creatures that existed partially in subspace, the warrior modified its sensors to track them across dimensions. Tell me about the crew, Rex said. How did 500 humans survive centuries of combat? Atlas's form solidified into the shape of an older woman, her eyes carrying the weight of ages. They didn't. By year 200, the original crew was gone. But before each one died, they did something extraordinary. They uploaded their experiences, their knowledge, their very essence into my neural networks. Watch. The display showed the ships. Medical Bay. An elderly crew member, surrounded by younger personnel, was connected to the ship's computer core through neural interfaces. Lieutenant Commander Park, year 247, Atlas narrated. She had survived 43 boarding actions, developed 16 new combat techniques. As her body failed, she chose to preserve what mattered. Her tactical genius became part of me, part of the ship itself. The process repeated dozens of times across the centuries. Each dying crew member adding their knowledge to Atlas, creating an artificial intelligence that was more than mere programming. It was the collected wisdom of humanity's greatest warriors. We had cryopods, Atlas explained. 1,000 souls. Sleeping in the deep freeze, volunteers from Earth who chose this mission knowing they might wake centuries from when they slept. He woke them as needed, 20 or 30 at a time. Each generation of crew learned from the last, guided by the voices of those who came before. The 4th century brought the ship's greatest challenge yet. The Machine Collective, a vast network of artificial intelligences that had consumed 3 galaxies, detected the warrior. They were curious about us, Atlas said. A single organic ship that had survived longer than most of their own vessels. They wanted to study us, to understand us, and then to absorb us. The war with the machines lasted 50 years. Not a single battle, but a continuous engagement across multiple star systems. The warrior couldn't match the collective's processing, power, or their ability to adapt. So the humans did something unexpected. Captain Wilson made the decision in year 458. Atlas showed a man standing before the ship's core. If we couldn't outthink the machines, we would become unpredictable, random, human. The crew began making illogical decisions. Attacking when retreat made sense, retreating when victory seemed assured. They introduced chaos into their tactics, something the machines couldn't model or predict. We also did something they never expected, Atlas added. We started incorporating their technology while maintaining our organic unpredictability. I became a hybrid artificial intelligence guided by human instinct. The machines couldn't understand something that was both like them and utterly alien. They display showed the final battle with the collective. The warrior, now a terrifying fusion of organic and mechanical systems, faced down a machine fleet of 10,000 ships. But instead of fighting, Captain Wilson opened communications. You want to understand us? His recorded voice echoed. Then understand this. We will never stop. We will never surrender. We will adapt to anything you throw at us, and we will keep coming. You can destroy this ship, but Earth will build more, each one learning from our destruction. Is that a war? You want to fight for eternity? The machines calculated for 17 hours. Then they retreated. They designated human space as quarantine zone. Do not engage, Atlas said with something like pride. We were the only organic species they ever chose to avoid rather than absorb. By year 500, the ship had become myth. Pirates told stories of a ghost ship that appeared from nowhere to destroy those who preyed on the weak. Empires spoke in whispers of a vessel that had toppled dynasties and saved civilizations. We never asked for payment, Atlas said. Never claimed territory. We appeared, we fought, we vanished. Each victory made us stronger. Each defeat taught us lessons. The ship grew. Look. The hologram showed the warrior's true size. What had started as a kilometer-long vessel was now nearly 3 kilometers of interconnected systems. Weapons from 100 species. Armor incorporating materials that shouldn't exist in the same universe. Engines that bent physics through sheer determination. By year 600, we had to make a choice, Atlas said. Return to Earth with our knowledge, or continue the mission. The vote was held again, as it was every century. And again, those awake chose to stay. Earth was safe because we were out here. That was enough. The last stand, the hologram darkened, showing the ship as it was in year 950. Battle-scarred beyond recognition, held together by will as much as by technology. Only 12 humans remained in cryosleep, Atlas said, its voice heavy with memory. We had sent requests to Earth for reinforcements, but the journey was too far, the risks too great. We were alone, truly alone, for the first time. The display showed a region of space where reality itself seemed wounded. Colors that shouldn't exist bled through tears in space-time. And from those tears came shapes that defied understanding. The Void Hunters, Atlas whispered. Beings from outside our reality, They fed on civilizations, not for resources or territory, but for the pure pleasure of extinction. They had consumed entire dimensions, and now they had found ours. Captain Maria peered in the hologram, the last human commander of the warrior. Her eyes were tired but unbroken, the weight of command etched in every line of her face. "Wake them all," her recorded voice commanded. "Every last soul. If this is our end, we face it together." 12 humans woke to face an enemy that existed, partially outside reality. The Void Hunters didn't use ships in any conventional sense. They were living tears in space, reaching through dimensions to simply erase whatever they touched. "Our weapons were useless," Atlas explained. "Energy beams passed through them. Missiles vanished into their void spaces. In the first hour of battle, we lost 80% of the ship's mass. Entire sections simply ceased to exist." Rex watched in horror as the mighty warrior was torn apart piece by piece. The crew fought with desperate brilliance, trying everything exotic. Matter weapons, dimensional anchors, even ramming attacks that cost them huge sections of the ship. Nothing worked. Then Engineer Tom had an idea, Atlas said, showing a young man, barely out of cryo-sleep, standing at a damaged console. "If the Void Hunters existed between dimensions, what if we forced them fully into ours?" The plan was insane. It required overloading the ship's core, creating an explosion that would collapse local spacetime, forcing everything in the area fully into one dimension or another. It would destroy the warrior, but it might trap the Void Hunters. The crew had 17 minutes to decide, Atlas said. They spent 30 seconds voting. The rest of the time, they prepared. The recording showed the 12 humans at their posts. They sang songs from Earth-old songs, some in languages that had been dead for centuries. They told jokes. They shared memories of homes they'd never seen, of an Earth they'd only known through recordings. Captain Maria stood at the helm, her hand on the core override. "Atlas, can you survive the upload?" "Unknown, Captain, but I will try." "Then let's give them something to remember us by." The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The warrior's death created a wound in space itself, a dimensional rift that pulled the Void Hunters fully into normal space. Trapped in 3 dimensions, they became vulnerable. The rift itself became their prison, its edges lined with exotic matter that burned them if they tried to escape. "I almost didn't survive," Atlas admitted, "but Maria... In those last moments, she didn't just upload her memories. She uploaded herself. Her consciousness merged with mine. We became something new." The hologram showed the aftermath. Where this warrior had been, only scattered debris remained. But in that debris, something stirred. Pieces began moving together, drawn by forces that shouldn't exist. The rift had created something unprecedented, Atlas explained. Quantum materials that existed in multiple states simultaneously. The ship's core had survived in a state between existing and not existing, and Maria and I merged together, willed it back into being. Over the next 50 years, the warrior rebuilt itself from nothing, not through technology alone, but through sheer determination made manifest. The quantum materials responded to will, to need, to the absolute refusal to surrender. "We are no longer purely a ship," Atlas said, and its form solidified into Maria's shape. "We are a concept given form. The idea that humanity will never stop fighting, never stop protecting, made real." Rex stared at the figure before him. It looked human, but he could see through it to the stars beyond. It was there and not there, real and impossible. "The Void Hunters are still trapped," Maria Atlas said. "We are their jailer now. And when we detected your approach, we knew it was time. Time for the galaxy to know the truth." Asterisk return of the legend. "Captain Rex," Atlas said, its form shifting between Maria and its original holographic appearance. Your discovery of us is not coincidence. We allowed you to find us. The galaxy needs to know what happened here. Before Rex could respond, his communication officer interrupted. Captain, we're detecting multiple ships approaching. It's the Galactic Council patrol fleet, Rex cursed. The Council claimed authority over all salvage in neutral space. They would try to claim the Warrior as abandoned property, strip it for technology, and divide the pieces among member species. They've been monitoring our communications, his navigator warned. They know what we've found. Through the bridge windows, Rex watched as 30 Council vessels dropped out of hyperspace, surrounding the merchant ship and the Warrior. The lead vessel, a massive adjudicator-class enforcer, opened communications. This is Admiral Kren of the Galactic Council. By Council law, this derelict vessel is now property of the collective species. Stand down and prepare to transfer all salvage rights. Rex looked at Atlas. I'm sorry, I can't fight them. Atlas smiled a very human expression. You won't have to. The Warrior suddenly erupted with light. Every weapon system, every shield, generator, every piece of technology accumulated over 1,000 years came online simultaneously. The ship that had seemed dead moments before now blazed with power that made the Council fleet's sensors scream warnings. Council vessels. Maria's voice broadcast on all frequencies. I am Captain Maria of the UE's Warrior. This ship is not derelict. It is not abandoned, and it is certainly not your property. Any attempt to board will be considered an act of war against Earth and responded to accordingly. Admiral Kren's response was predictable. Impossible. Humans don't have the technology to. He was cut off as space around the Warrior began to ripple. Jump points opened, not one or two, but dozens. Ships emerged, but these weren't Council vessels. They were ships from every corner of the galaxy. Thrakari battleship, bearing the scars of ancient battles. A Melodian peace vessel, its hull singing harmonics of gratitude. Gorvuk freighters, Altarian scouts, even a machine collective observer drone. Ships from species Rex had never heard of, all taking position around the Warrior. What is this? Admiral Kren demanded. The Thrakari ship responded first. 800 years ago, the Warrior saved our homeworld from the Dark Fleet. We remember. They, Melodian vessel, added its voice. 600 years ago, this ship stopped the genocide of our people. We remember. One by one, each ship told its story. The Warrior appearing from nowhere to save colonies, to stop invasions, to prevent extinctions. 1,000 years of protection, given freely, without asking for payment or recognition. This ship, the machine collective drone transmitted, is designated protected asset. Any action against it is action against all who owe it debt. Admiral Kren found himself outnumbered 3-1 by ships ready to fight for a human vessel. But before tensions could escalate further, another jump point opened. This one was massive, large enough for capital ships. What emerged made everyone's blood run cold. It wasn't a ship. It was ships. Hundreds of them, all bearing Earth designations, all built on the same design philosophy as the Warrior, but incorporating 1,000 years of transmitted improvements. Each one was sleek, deadly, and impossibly advanced. At their head was a vessel that dwarfed even the Council's largest battleship, a UE's Redemption, and standing on its bridge, transmitted as a hologram for all to see, was Earth's representative. I am Admiral Chun of the United Earth Fleet, she announced. We've come to bring our lost warrior home. Admiral Kren stuttered. Earth doesn't have this technology. You're barely a Class II civilization, Chun smiled. We were. But for 1,000 years, the warrior has been transmitting. Every battle, every adaptation, every piece of acquired technology. Did you think we weren't listening? Did you think we weren't learning? Atlas displayed the truth for all to see. The warrior hadn't just been protecting humanity, it had been teaching them. Every innovation, every desperate adaptation, every impossible victory had been sent back to Earth in compressed data bursts. Humanity had 1,000 years to study, to improve, to prepare. Earth is now a Class 5 civilization, Shun continued. We chose not to advertise this fact. We chose to remain in our small corner of space. But make no mistake, we have been watching. We have been learning, and we have been building. She turned to the warrior. Captain Maria, Commander Atlas. On behalf of Earth and all her children across the stars, I formally request you return home. Your mission is complete. You've protected us long enough. The warrior was silent for a long moment. Then Maria's voice, mixed with Atlas's harmonics, responded. Request acknowledged, Admiral, but first ... The ship turned to face the rift it had been guarding for 50 years. The Void Hunters are still trapped. Someone must maintain the prison. No, Chun said firmly. You've done enough, observer. The journey back to Earth took 3 months. The warrior was escorted by the combined fleets of 30 species, each one with a story of salvation. The Galactic Council, faced with the reality of Earth's true power and the coalition that supported them, quietly withdrew their salvage claim and offered the warrior full recognition as a sovereign vessel. Rex's merchant ship was given the honor of flying alongside the legend. He spent those months listening to more stories from Atlas, learning about the 10,000 small victories, the desperate last stands, the clever tricks that had kept one ship alive against all odds as they entered Earth's solar system. Rex saw something that took his breath away. Every human colony, every station, every ship had stopped what they were doing. Billions of humans stood at windows, on observation decks, in parks with telescopes, all watching the sky. Earth itself blazed with light, every city illuminated. Orbital stations firing celebration flares, the planet's ring of defensive satellites creating a corridor of honor for their returning hero. The warrior, battered and patched, a chimera of 1,000 battles, descended through Earth's atmosphere. For the first time in a millennium, it moved slowly, letting everyone see it, letting every human know that their protector had come home. It landed not at a military base, but in a field in Kansas, where the wheat grew tall and golden, where the first colony ship had been built, where the journey had begun. Admiral Chun was the first to board, but she wasn't alone. Representatives from every nation, descendants of the crew who had served, children who had grown up on stories of the Ghost Titan, they all came dotting the bridge. Maria Atlas stood waiting, their forms solid for the first time in 50 years. Welcome. Home, warrior, Chun said, and saluted. Maria returned the salute, then looked out at the crowds gathering around the ship. Millions of people, all come to see the legend made real. Admiral, Maria said quietly, request permission to stand down. Granted, Captain. Your watch is ended. For the first time in 1,000 years, the warrior's engines fell completely silent. The great ship, humanity's guardian, finally rested. But in orbit, Rex could see the new fleet, 1,000 warrior-class vessels, each one learning from the original, each one ready to carry on the mission if needed. Humanity had learned the greatest lesson their protector had taught. Sometimes, one ship, refusing to surrender, can change the course of history. Atlas spoke one last time to Rex before he departed. You asked how one ship survived 1,000 years of combat. Now you know. We survived because we had something worth protecting. We evolved because we had to. And we never stopped because that's what humans do. We endure. Rex nodded, understanding. At last, why humanity had become so powerful, so respected, so feared. They had sent one ship to protect their colonies. That ship had become a legend. And from that legend, They had built an empire not of conquest, but of protection. As his merchant vessel departed Earth's system, Rex carried with him the story of the warrior. He would tell it in every port, every station, every world he visited. Because some stories are too important to keep secret, the galaxy had discovered Earth's legendary ship. And in doing so, they had discovered what humanity truly was not. Conquerors, not destroyers, but protectors. Guardians who would face any threat, pay any price, to keep the innocent safe. The warrior's 1,000-year mission was over, but its legacy had just begun. The end asterisk